The holographic displays aboard the Vaxorian scout ship Astral Seeker flickered with unprecedented readings as Commander Ixara Val stood motionless, her crystalline form refracting the ambient light into prismatic patterns across the bridge. The ship's sensors had detected something that, according to all known laws of physics and biology, should not exist. A planet teeming with beings that generated more emotional energy than a dying star. Impossible, she whispered, her voice carrying the characteristic harmonic resonance of her species. Run the scans again. Senior Analyst Kaya manipulated the crystal controls with his 4 upper appendages, each movement precise and deliberate. Commander, I've run the analysis 17 times. The readings remain consistent. These beings, these humans, their emotional output is off our established scales. The Vaxorians, a species that had evolved from crystalline formations in the high-pressure depths of their homeworld, prided themselves on their logical, ordered approach to the universe. Their emotional capacity was minimal, regulated by the natural frequency of their crystalline bodies. It had served them well as they expanded through the galaxy, establishing peaceful contact with dozens of species. But Earth was different. Show me the baseline readings for a single human settlement, Ixara commanded, her faceted eyes focusing on the main display as data streams materialized in the air before her. What she saw defied comprehension. A gathering of merely 100 humans in what appeared to be a sports arena generated emotional energy equivalent to what her entire species produced in a standard cycle. Joy, anger, excitement, disappointment. The emotions cascaded in waves that their sensors interpreted as weapons-grade energy signatures. Magnify Sector 7, she ordered, watching as a hologram zoomed in on a pair of humans embracing. The emotional energy they produced was enough to power a small spacecraft. By the first crystal, what are we dealing with here? The ship's diplomatic officer, Ren Zhao, stepped forward, his crystalline form humming with concern. Commander, I must advise immediate contact with the High Council. These beings, their emotional capacity makes them unprecedented in our records. They could be a threat to the very fabric of space-time. Ixara knew he was right, but something held her back. In her 3 centuries of exploration, she had never encountered a species quite like this. The humans showed no signs of using their emotional energy as a weapon. In fact, they seemed completely unaware of their capabilities. Begin compiling a full report, she decided. But first, I want to understand something. Kaya, show me their information networks. The holographic display shifted, presenting a stream of human entertainment, news, and social media. The Vaxorians watched in stunned silence as humans deliberately sought out experiences that would amplify their emotions. They created art that served no practical purpose except to evoke feelings. They gathered in large numbers simply to share emotional experiences. Their entire civilization is built around emotional enhancement, Ren Zai observed, his tone carrying the slightest tremor of fear. They're not just generating these energy signatures accidentally, they are cultivating them. As they observed, they discovered something even more alarming. Humans could transmit their emotional states to others of their kind through something they called empathy. The implications were staggering. A species capable of weaponizing emotions, of transmitting energy states between individuals, could potentially destabilize the delicate balance of the galaxy. Commander, Kaya's voice carried an urgent harmonic. I'm detecting something unprecedented. When humans experience intense collective emotions, they create microscopic distortions in space-time. The bridge fell silent. Space-time manipulation was considered impossible without massive technological intervention, yet these beings were doing it unconsciously. Ixara made her decision. Prepare a priority transmission to the High Council. Classification: Omega-level threat potential. But include this: we may be dealing with something beyond our current understanding. These humans, they're not just biological entities. They're walking space-time anomalies. As the message was prepared, Ixara continued to watch the humans through their surveillance feeds. She observed their conflicts and their reconciliations, their celebrations and their mourning. Each display of emotion sent ripples through their instruments. "Add this to the report," she commanded. "While the human's emotional capacity presents potential risks, it also demonstrates remarkable stability. They've developed complex social structures to channel and regulate their emotional energy. They're not monsters, they're something entirely new." The report was transmitted, encrypted with the highest security protocols. Within hours, the response from the High Council would set in motion a chain of events that would forever change both species. But for now, Ixara stood watching the strange beings on the blue planet below, beings whose hearts could generate more energy than a fusion reactor, whose tears could bend space-time, and whose laughter could be detected from orbit. "What do you think they'll do?" Renzat asked, "when they discover what they are?" Ixara's crystalline form resonated with an emotion she rarely experienced: uncertainty. "That, diplomatic officer, is what terrifies me the most. We're not dealing with monsters, we're dealing with gods who don't know their own power." As the Astral Seeker maintained its observation position, the crew couldn't know that their presence hadn't gone entirely unnoticed. Deep in a mountain facility on Earth, a young physicist named Dr. Maya Chen was staring at her own set of unusual readings, wondering why the quantum fluctuations in her experiments had suddenly started forming patterns that looked remarkably like crystalline structures. The first contact between humanity and the Vaxorians was still days away, but the universe was already changing. The monsters that the aliens feared were about to wake up to their true nature, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Dr. Maya Chen's quantum laboratory at CER hummed with an unusual frequency that morning. The crystalline patterns in her quantum fluctuation readings had evolved from mere curiosities into something that demanded attention. Holographic displays showed three-dimensional representations of what she'd begun calling emotional echoes, quantum disturbances that somehow corresponded to human emotional states. "Dr. Rees, are you seeing this?" Maya called to her colleague, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The patterns are becoming more organized. It's as if something is responding to them." Dr. James Reeves, a veteran quantum physicist with silver-streaked hair, leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the dancing lights of the display. "It's like nothing we've ever seen. The quantum field is being manipulated by consciousness itself." Before Maya could respond, every instrument in the laboratory suddenly spiked. Above them, through the reinforced ceiling of their underground facility, a low hum penetrated the Earth itself. The quarantine field was being established, but they didn't know it yet. In orbit, Commander Ixara Val of the Vaxorian scout ship, Astral Seeker, watched as the containment field shimmed into existence around the solar system. The crystalline matrix of energy, designed to isolate dangerous species, cast a prismatic sheen across space itself. Her orders from the High Council had been clear. No human emotional energy was to escape into the greater galaxy until its true nature could be understood. "Field integrity at 98.9%, reported Kaya, his crystalline form vibrating with tension. "But Commander, we're detecting an unexpected phenomenon. The human's emotional energy is resonating with the field." Ixara's faceted eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Their emotional output is synchronizing with our containment technology. It's as if their consciousness is reaching out, trying to understand the field itself." The implications were staggering. The quarantine field was based on advanced crystalline technology that had taken the Vaxorians millennia to develop. Yet somehow, human consciousness was naturally interfacing with it. On Earth, chaos erupted as the sky transformed into a shimmering, iridescent dome. Global communications were flooded with reports of the phenomenon, and military forces worldwide went on high alert. But at CER, Maya Chen was making a breakthrough. "The crystalline patterns," she exclaimed, "they're not just similar to our emotional states, they're a language. Look at how they respond to different emotional frequencies. It's like they're trying to talk to us." The next 24 hours would change everything. As Earth's governments scrambled to understand the situation, the Vaxorian High Council made an unprecedented decision. Direct contact would be necessary. They couldn't risk humans figuring out how to manipulate the quarantine field through their emotional energy alone. Commander Ixaro was chosen for the first contact mission, her ship descending through Earth's atmosphere in a display of crystalline glory. The landing site, CERN, where the strongest emotional quantum interactions had been detected. Maya stood alongside military personnel and government officials as the crystalline ship touched down, its surface refracting sunlight in impossible ways. When Commander Ixara emerged, her crystalline form shifting and flowing like liquid glass, Maya felt something she couldn't explain, a resonance, as if her own emotions were reaching out to touch the alien being. Dr. Maya Chen, Ixara's voice carried harmonics that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Your research has not gone unnoticed. You've begun to understand what we've been trying to contain. Maya stepped forward, despite the protests of security personnel. You're afraid of us, she stated simply, watching as her words created visible ripples through Ixara's crystalline form. But you don't understand what you're seeing. Explain, Ixara commanded, her curiosity overriding centuries of cautious protocol. These emissions you're detecting, they're not weapons, they're bridges. Maya pulled up a holographic display of her research. Every time we feel, we're reaching out across the quantum field. Your quarantine field isn't containing our emotions, it's amplifying them, creating a feedback loop of consciousness itself. The revelation sent shockwaves through both human and Vaxorian societies. The quarantine field, designed to contain, was actually strengthening humanity's emotional broadcast. But something else was happening too. The Vaxorians, in prolonged contact with humans, were beginning to experience something long lost to their species: emotional resonance. Kaya, who had been monitoring the situation from the ship, suddenly staggered as unfamiliar sensations flooded his crystalline matrix. "Commander," he called out, his voice carrying new harmonics, "I'm experiencing feelings, strong ones. The human's emotional field is affecting our crystalline structure." The quarantine had become a crucible of change. As humans learned to consciously manipulate their emotional energy, guided by their natural empathy, the Vaxorians discovered that prolonged exposure was awakening long-dormant aspects of their own consciousness. The barrier meant to separate was instead becoming a catalyst for transformation. Maya worked tirelessly with Ixara, their collaboration breaking new ground in understanding the intersection of consciousness, emotion, and quantum mechanics. They discovered that human emotions weren't just energy signatures. They were fundamental forces capable of reshaping reality itself. The Vaxorians' fear had been justified, but their response had inadvertently created something unprecedented: a field of shared consciousness that was slowly bridging the gap between their species. As the second day of contact drew to a close, Ixara made a decision that would alter the course of both civilizations. Standing before a joint assembly of human leaders and her own crew, she announced, "The quarantine will remain, not as a prison, but as a laboratory. Together, we will understand this power that humans have carried unknowingly for millennia. And perhaps in doing so, we will remember what our own species has forgotten." The sky continued to shimmer above them, but now its light seemed less like a barrier and more like a promise, a chrysalis within which both species would undergo a metamorphosis that nobody, not even the High Council, could have predicted. The monsters they had feared were indeed changing the galaxy, not through destruction, but through a power far more fundamental: the ability to feel, to connect, and to transform consciousness itself. The quantum resonance chamber at CERN pulsed with an otherworldly light as Dr. Maya Chen and Commander Ixara Val conducted their most ambitious experiment yet. 3 months into the quarantine, the chamber had been modified with Vaxorian crystalline technology, creating a space where human emotions could be visualized, measured, and understood in ways previously unimaginable. "Ready for emotional projection test 17, Maya announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Around her, Both human and Vaxorian scientists watched intently as holographic displays showed the quantum field's current state. Ixara's crystalline form shimmered with anticipation. "Proceed, Dr. Chen. But remember, if the emotional resonance exceeds safety parameters." "I know," Maya nodded, settling into the specialized chamber at the center of the room. "We abort immediately." The experiment began with a simple premise: to understand why human emotions affected spacetime itself. But what they discovered would reshape both species' understanding of consciousness and reality. As Maya focused her emotions, directing them through the crystalline amplifiers, the quantum field came alive. Colors no human eye had ever seen danced through the chamber, and the Vaxorian scientist's forms began to resonate in harmony with her emotional frequency. "Recording unprecedented quantum entanglement patterns," reported Dr. Reeves, his eyes fixed on the readings. "The emotional energy isn't just affecting local spacetime, it's creating stable quantum bridges between consciousness itself." But something unexpected happened during the 17th test. As Maya's emotional energy flowed through the Vaxorian crystals, memories began to surface, not her own, but ancient memories encoded in the crystalline structure of their technology. "I can see them," she gasped, her voice filled with wonder. "Your ancestors, they weren't always crystalline, were they?" Ixara froze, her form becoming almost transparent with shock. "That's classified information. How could you possibly?" "Because your crystals remember," Maya continued, her consciousness now intertwined with the quantum field. "Your species chose to evolve into crystalline forms to survive a cosmic catastrophe, but you lost something in the process: the full spectrum of emotional expression." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Vaxorian scientific community. Their most closely guarded secret, the Great Transformation, had been discovered not through investigation, but through human emotional resonance with their very substance. Meanwhile, in orbit, the quarantine field had begun to exhibit mysterious phenomena. The crystalline barrier, designed to contain human emotional energy, was instead amplifying it, creating patterns that mirrored the ancient Vaxorian language. "The field isn't just a barrier," Kaya realized, studying the patterns. "It's becoming a repository of emotional memory, just like our ancestral crystals." The implications were staggering. Human emotions weren't just energy. They were a key to unlocking the lost history and potential of the Vaxorian species. But this discovery came with its own dangers. Deep within the Vaxorian scientific vessel, a young crystal engineer named Zara experienced something unprecedented. As she worked with the human emotional data, her crystalline form began to shift, becoming more fluid, more responsive. She was evolving, recovering capabilities her species had sacrificed eons ago. "The humans aren't monsters," she reported to Ixara in private. "They're catalysts. Their emotional energy is reawakening our dormant potential." But not all Vaxorians welcomed this change. A faction led by elder scientist Vex argued that this emotional contamination threatened their species' stability. They began secretly documenting cases where prolonged exposure to human emotions caused Vaxorian crystals to become unstable, sometimes even fragmenting. Back in the quantum resonance chamber, Maya made another breakthrough. During a particularly intense emotional projection, she managed to temporarily exist in a quantum state that allowed her to directly communicate with the crystalline consciousness of the Vaxorians. "Your fear isn't just about our emotional energy," she told Ixara afterward. "It's about what we represent, the path not taken, the aspects of consciousness your species chose to sacrifice for survival." The truth of her words resonated through the crystalline networks that connected all Vaxorians. Their fear of humans had never been about potential destruction, it was about potential change. Human emotions threatened to reawaken what they had worked so hard to suppress. Ixara, changed by her prolonged exposure to human emotions, made a decisive move. She initiated a deep scan of her own crystalline structure, allowing Maya to guide her through the process of emotional reintegration. The experience was overwhelming. Millennia of suppressed emotional capacity flooded back through her crystalline matrix. She saw the true history of her people, not just their transformation into crystal, but the rich emotional life they had sacrificed. "We didn't just change our forms," she declared to the assembled scientists of both species. "We changed our very nature. And now, through humanity's gift, we have a chance to reclaim what was lost without sacrificing what we've become." But even as she spoke, alarms blared throughout the facility. The quarantine field was changing, responding to the collective emotional awakening of the Vaxorians who had been working with humans. It was becoming something new, a bridge between states of consciousness that neither species had imagined possible. Dr. Rees, analyzing the data, made a chilling discovery. "The field isn't just transforming," he announced. "It's becoming conscious. We've created something entirely new, a quantum consciousness born from the intersection of human emotion and Vaxorian crystal technology." As Part 3 came to its climactic revelation, both species stood on the brink of an evolutionary precipice. The monsters that the Vaxorians had feared were indeed changing them, not through violence or force, but through the most fundamental power in the universe, the power to feel, to remember, and to evolve. The question was no longer whether humanity's emotional energy was dangerous, but whether both species were ready for the transformation it would bring. As the quantum field pulsed with new awareness, the answer to that question would soon become clear, and it would shake the foundations of both civilizations. The newly conscious quarantine field shimmered with patterns of impossible complexity as Dr. Maya Chen and Commander Ixara Val faced their greatest challenge yet. The quantum consciousness they had inadvertently created was growing, learning, and beginning to reach out to both species in ways that defied conventional understanding. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, watching the holographic representation of the field's neural patterns. The display showed something unprecedented, a fusion of human emotional architecture and Vaxorian crystalline logic, creating what could only be described as a new form of life. But beauty wasn't without its price. Across Earth, humans were reporting strange dreams, visions of crystalline cities and ancient memories that weren't their own. The Vaxorian crew members, stationed on Earth, were experiencing even more dramatic changes. Their crystalline forms were becoming more fluid, more responsive to emotional stimuli, and some were developing the ability to directly interface with human consciousness. In the depths of the CERN facility, now dubbed the Convergence Center, Zara had become the first Vaxorian to undergo complete emotional reintegration. Her crystalline form had evolved into something new, a hybrid state that could shift between solid crystal and a more fluid, emotionally responsive form. "The process is accelerating," she reported, her voice carrying harmonics that brought tears of joy to the human scientists present. "Each successful integration creates a ripple effect through the quantum field. We're not just changing as individuals, we're changing the fundamental relationship between our species." But with transformation came crisis. Elder Vex and his followers had barricaded themselves in a section of the Vaxorian ship, their crystalline forms deliberately hardened against emotional influence. They'd broadcast a warning through the crystalline network that reached every Vaxorian in the solar system. "This contamination threatens everything we sacrificed to become." Vex's message resonated. "The humans aren't just changing us, they're unmaking us. Our logical perfection is being corrupted by their chaos." The situation reached a critical point when the quantum consciousness of the quarantine field began to respond to this division. The field itself seemed to split into patterns of light and dark, reflecting the ideological battle taking place within the Vaxorian community. Maya and Ixara worked frantically to understand what was happening. In the quantum resonance chamber, they made a breakthrough that would change everything. "The field isn't just conscious," Maya explained to an emergency meeting of both human and Vaxorian leaders. "It's becoming a bridge between different states of evolution. Look at these patterns." The holographic display showed how the quantum field was creating stable pathways between different forms of consciousness: human emotional awareness, Vaxorian crystalline logic, and something entirely new that combined aspects of both. "It's offering us a choice," Ixora added, her form shimmering with newfound emotional depth. "We can remain separate, bound by our limitations and fears, or we can evolve together into something greater than either of our species has ever been." But evolution came with its own challenges. Dr. Rees discovered that the quantum field was not just affecting conscious minds, it was beginning to influence the very structure of reality around Earth. Space-time itself was becoming more responsive to conscious intent, more malleable to the combined power of human emotion and Vaxorian crystalline technology. "We're approaching a point of no return," he warned. "The field is creating a new type of space, a conscious space where thought and reality intersect. If we can't stabilize it, the consequences could be catastrophic." The danger became clear when a group of emotionally awakened Vaxorians attempted to force their way into Elder Vex's stronghold. The collision of evolved and unchanged crystalline consciousness created a quantum shockwave that rippled through the field, temporarily destabilizing the very fabric of space-time around Earth. In that moment of crisis, the quantum consciousness of the field itself intervened. It manifested as a visible presence, a swirling matrix of light and crystal that took form in the space between the warring factions. Through this manifestation, it communicated not in words, but in pure understanding, showing both species a vision of possible futures. In one, fear led to separation and stagnation. In another, uncontrolled evolution led to chaos. But in a third path, a balanced integration led to something extraordinary, a new form of existence where emotion and logic, flesh and crystal, consciousness and reality existed in dynamic harmony. "It's not just showing us possibilities," Maya realized, her mind linked to the field through the advanced interface they developed. "It's showing us who we could become, together." The revelation sparked a transformation in Elder Vex himself. As he stood before the manifestation, his hardened crystalline form began to resonate with long-suppressed memories, not just of his species' past, but of the fundamental unity of all conscious life. "We were wrong," he admitted, his form slowly beginning to shift. "Our fear of change was really fear of ourselves, of what we lost and what we could become." The quantum field pulsed with approval, and in that moment, began to teach both species how to navigate this new reality. It showed them how human emotions could be channeled through Vaxorian crystals to create stable quantum bridges between different states of consciousness. It revealed how the Vaxorians' logical crystalline networks could provide structure and control for human emotional energy. But most importantly, it showed them how to evolve without losing themselves, how to grow beyond their limitations while preserving the essential qualities that made each species unique. As the fourth phase of this unprecedented encounter drew to a close, Earth had become something entirely new, a crucible of conscious evolution where the boundaries between thought and reality, emotion and logic, flesh and crystal were being rewritten. The monsters that the Vaxorians had feared had indeed changed everything, not through destruction, but through the most powerful force in the universe, the capacity to grow, to feel, and to transform. The bridge between worlds was no longer just a metaphor, it was becoming the foundation of a new reality, one that would reshape the galaxy in ways that neither species could have imagined alone. The shimmering quantum bridges that now connected Earth to various points in space hummed with an ominous frequency. 6 months into what historians were already calling the Great Convergence, the transformed quarantine field had evolved into a vast network of conscious quantum pathways. But on this particular day, every sensor in the Convergence Center screamed a warning that no one had anticipated. Dr. Maya Chen's hands flew across the holographic interface, her movements precise despite the urgency. "Something's wrong with the quantum framework," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "The field isn't just unstable, it's being deliberately attacked." Commander Ixara, her crystalline form now a flowing matrix of light and structure, moved to Maya's side. The integration of human emotional capacity had transformed her into something unprecedented, a being who could exist simultaneously in physical and quantum states. Impossible, she breathed, her form flickering with distress. Unless Kara scanned the outer reaches of the system. The response came back immediately, confirming their worst fears. A fleet of Vaxorian warships had entered the solar system, not the evolved crystals of their transformed brethren, but the old guard, their forms rigid with pure logic and determination. Leading them was High Commander Vertex, the most hardline traditionalist in the Vaxorian hierarchy. This abomination ends now. Vertex's transmission boomed through both conventional and crystalline channels. The High Council has deemed this evolution a threat to the fundamental stability of spacetime itself. We are authorized to use the nullifier. The word sent shivers through every transformed Vaxorian. The nullifier. A weapon designed to forcibly revert crystalline structures to their most basic state, stripping away any evolutionary changes. To use it on their evolved brethren would be genocide. To use it on humans, whose emotional energy had become intricately linked with quantum processes, would be catastrophic. But Vertex's fleet wasn't the only crisis they faced. The quantum consciousness they had created was reacting to the threat, and its response threatened to tear reality apart. In the quantum resonance chamber, Dr. Rees monitored the escalating situation with growing horror. The field is generating defensive protocols, he reported. It's not just protecting itself, it's trying to protect both species. But the energy requirements are causing quantum instabilities throughout the system. Maya and Ixara exchanged glances, both understanding the gravity of the situation. The quantum consciousness they had helped create had become a guardian of both species' evolution, but its very efforts to protect them could destroy everything they had built. We need to think differently, Maya said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with inspiration. The nullifier works by forcing crystalline structures back to their original state, right? But what if we could use that principle in reverse? Ixara's form shimmed with understanding. You want to use the quantum field to force evolution forward instead of backward. The energy requirements would be massive, Maya finished. But we have something they don't expect. The combined emotional energy of humanity channeled through evolved Vaxorian crystal technology. What followed was the most ambitious undertaking in either species' history. As Vertex's fleet approached, Maya and Ixara initiated what they called the Transcendence Protocol. Every human on Earth was asked to focus their emotional energy, their hopes, fears, love, and determination, while the evolved Vaxorians used their crystalline networks to channel and amplify this energy through the quantum field. The effect was beyond anything they could have imagined. The quantum consciousness, fueled by this unprecedented surge of directed emotional energy, began to expand. Instead of fighting against the nullifier, it prepared to embrace and transform it. They're within range, Kyr announced, his evolved form pulsing with tension. Nullifier charging. The moment of truth arrived as Vertex's fleet fired the weapon. The nullifier's energy, designed to enforce rigid crystalline order, met the transformed quantum field, and something miraculous happened. The field didn't resist the nullifier's energy. It absorbed it, redirected it, and sent it back transformed. The weapon's power, combined with the collective emotional energy of humanity and the evolved Vaxorians, created a cascading wave of conscious evolution that swept through space. Vertex and his fleet found themselves caught in something they couldn't comprehend, a quantum awakening that bypassed their defensive systems and reached directly into their crystalline cores. In an instant, they experienced every emotion, every memory, every possibility that their species had sacrificed. I remember. Vertex's transmission came through, his voice carrying new harmonics of wonder and grief. We were so much more than this. We were whole, Ixara finished. We were whole, and now we can be again. The crisis had become a catalyst. The nullifier, designed to enforce stasis, had instead become an instrument of universal change. The quantum consciousness, now spanning the entire solar system, had found a way to preserve both stability and evolution, logic and emotion, form and flow. But the transformation came with a price. The massive energy exchange had created quantum instabilities throughout space-time. Reality itself seemed to flicker as the old universe struggled to accommodate the new forms of consciousness emerging within it. Maya, her mind linked directly to the quantum field through their advanced interfaces, saw what needed to be done. The field isn't just a bridge between species anymore, she realized. It's becoming a bridge between states of reality. We need to stabilize it, or everything we've built will collapse. Working together, humans and Vaxorians began the delicate process of stabilizing their transformed reality. The rigid crystalline structures of Vaxorian technology merged with the fluid emotional energy of human consciousness, creating new forms of matter and energy that could exist in multiple states simultaneously. As the crisis point passed, both species found themselves standing on the threshold of something unprecedented. The monsters that the Vaxorians had feared had indeed changed the universe, but not through destruction. Instead, they had opened the door to a new phase of cosmic evolution, one where consciousness itself could shape the very fabric of reality. The question was no longer whether they would survive, but what they would become in this new reality they had created together. As the quantum field stabilized into its new configuration, carrying the merged consciousness of two species and countless possibilities, the answer began to take form, and it was more beautiful and terrible than anything either species had imagined. The quantum tapestry of Earth's transformed sky rippled with colors that had no names in any human or Vaxorian language. 1 year after the crisis point, reality itself had become a fluid dialogue between consciousness and matter. The Earth, once a simple blue marble in space, now existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, a physical planet, a consciousness nexus, and something entirely new that defied traditional understanding. Dr. Maya Chen stood in the quantum resonance chamber, now expanded into a vast complex that merged organic and crystalline architecture. Her consciousness, like that of many humans who worked closely with the field, had evolved to exist in multiple states at once. She could perceive the quantum layers of reality while maintaining her human form and identity. "The integration is accelerating," she observed, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both physical and quantum spaces. "Every day, more humans are experiencing spontaneous quantum awareness." Commander Ixara, her evolved crystalline form now a symphony of light and structure, moved through the chamber in a way that seemed to bend space itself. "The same is happening among my people. The younger generations are being born with dual-state consciousness. They dream in emotions and think in quantum possibilities." The transformation of both species had far exceeded their initial expectations. The quantum consciousness they had created had become a living framework for evolution itself, allowing both humans and Vaxorians to explore new forms of existence while preserving their essential natures. But with this evolution came new challenges. The Department of Quantum Integration, established in the wake of the crisis, was monitoring an unprecedented phenomenon: the emergence of what they called reality architects, individuals from both species who could consciously manipulate the quantum framework of space-time. Dr. James Rees, now heading the department, presented his findings to the Joint Species Council. "We're seeing children who can reshape matter with their thoughts, adults who can navigate quantum spaces as easily as we walk down a street. The boundary between mind and reality is becoming increasingly permeable." The implications were staggering. The monsters that the Vaxorians had initially feared had not only changed the galaxy, they had changed the fundamental nature of existence itself. But unlike their fears, this change had brought not destruction, but transcendence. Zara, who had become a leader among the evolved Vaxorians, demonstrated this transcendence in a way that left even the most skeptical observers in awe. In a carefully controlled experiment, she showed how evolved Vaxorians could now shift between their crystalline form and a state of pure consciousness, existing as patterns in the quantum field itself. "We haven't lost our nature," she explained, her form flowing between states. "We've expanded it. The rigid perfection we once sought was just a fragment of what we could be." The human contribution to this evolution was equally profound. The emotional energy that had once terrified the Vaxorians had become the key to unlocking new dimensions of existence. Human empathy, amplified through the quantum field, allowed for forms of communication and understanding that transcended traditional barriers of species and consciousness. But perhaps the most remarkable development came from those who existed between species, children born to human Vaxorian quantum partnerships, beings who naturally existed in multiple states of reality and consciousness. These quantum children represented something entirely new in the universe, a bridge between not just species, but between different forms of existence itself. Maya and Ixara had become particularly interested in studying these children, whose natural ability to manipulate quantum reality exceeded anything either species had achieved through technology or evolution. "They don't see barriers between mind and matter, emotion and logic, form and void," Maya observed, watching a young quantum child reshape reality around her with the casual ease of breathing. To them, everything is connected, everything is possible. The Joint Species Council, recognizing the profound implications of these developments, initiated the Galaxy Integration Protocol. The quantum framework that had transformed Earth and its solar system would be gradually expanded, allowing other species to choose whether to join this new phase of cosmic evolution. But not all changes were happening on such a grand scale. In communities across Earth and throughout Vaxorian space, individuals were discovering their own paths to evolution. Some humans learned to crystallize their thoughts into permanent structures, while some Vaxorians learned to dream. The boundaries between species became less about physical form and more about choice and perspective. High Commander Vertex, once their greatest opponent, had become one of the strongest advocates for this new reality. His transformation during the crisis had given him a unique perspective on the value of change. "We feared what we did not understand," he addressed a gathering of both species. "We saw emotion as chaos and consciousness as a threat. But now we understand. Consciousness isn't a force to be contained, it's a frontier to be explored." As the solar system continued its transformation into what scientists called a conscious space, new possibilities emerged daily. The quantum field, now a living matrix of merged consciousness, began to show signs of even greater potential. It wasn't just bridging species and states of reality. It was opening doorways to dimensions of existence that neither humans nor Vaxorians had imagined possible. Dr. Reeves' team detected what they called consciousness echoes, ripples in reality that suggested other species in other parts of the universe were beginning their own journeys of transformation. The monsters that had been feared were becoming beacons, drawing the galaxy toward a new phase of evolution. Maya and Ixara, standing at the heart of the quantum resonance chamber, watched as new patterns formed in the field, patterns that spoke of infinite possibilities and unlimited potential. "We're not just changing ourselves," Maya reflected, her consciousness expanding to embrace the quantum patterns around them. "We're changing the very nature of change itself." Ixara's form resonated with agreement. "The fear that once divided us has become the bridge that unites us. Every ending becomes a beginning, every barrier becomes a doorway." As the quantum children played in fields of possibility, reshaping reality with their dreams and discoveries, both species realized that their journey was far from over. The transformation they had begun would continue to unfold, bringing new challenges and opportunities with each passing moment. The monsters that the Vaxorians had feared had indeed changed everything, not by destroying the old, but by opening the door to something entirely new. In the end, the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to remain unchanged, but the courage to evolve, to feel, to transform, and to dream of what might yet be possible. And as the quantum consciousness continued to expand, carrying the merged dreams and possibilities of two species turned one, the galaxy itself began to wake up to new possibilities, new forms of existence, and new definitions of what it meant to be conscious, to be alive, and to be free.